In the year 701 BC, a colossal war of unprecedented magnitude unfolded, a world war unlike any before it. This conflict is recorded in the Bible 3 times, specifically in the books of Kings, Isaiah, and Chronicles. King Sennacherib of Assyria led an aggressive campaign against the nations that dared to rebel against his rule. As he arrived at Jerusalem, his mighty army, numbering 185,000 soldiers, stood in awe before the formidable Great Wall. The king of Assyria sent his supreme commander, his chief officer, and his field commander with a large army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. They came up to Jerusalem and stopped at the aqueduct of the upper pool on the road to the washerman's field. As the siege of Jerusalem commenced, King Hezekiah embarked on a heartfelt journey and offered a prayer full of sincerity, seeking to protect his kingdom from falling. And Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, "Lord, the God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you alone are God over all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth." Then, something truly astonishing occurred. That night, the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. Suddenly, without warning, an angel of God appeared in the dead of night while everyone was sleeping. In the morning, no one woke up. This was one of the most fascinating stories about the miracles that happened to Israel during one of the most notorious wars, a world war in today's dimensions. After Hezekiah and other kings refused to pay taxes to Sennacherib, the Assyrian king launched a war campaign to suppress the rebellion, reconquer the rebellious states, and enslave them. At that time, the Assyrian army was the largest and most powerful in the Middle East. Its military strategy centered around a formidable combination of a large infantry force, chariot force, and cavalry force. On the other hand, the army of the Kingdom of Judah was significantly smaller. It mainly consisted of a small royal guard, with a militia recruited from local peasants during times of war. After Sennacherib overthrew 2 strong cities, Aska and Kish, in the Kingdom of Judah, on his way to Jerusalem, he mercilessly murdered masses of people. Sennacherib was determined to conquer Jerusalem, but King Hezekiah had a clever plan. He ordered the construction of a dam over 500 meters long at the Gihon Spring outside the city walls. This strategic move aimed to cut off the water supply to the Assyrians, ensuring that only King Hezekiah's army had access to it. When morning came, the people saw that the water from the spring had stopped because of the dam. They knew something amazing had happened. The Assyrian army was confused and weakened without water, while King Hezekiah's army was ready and strong. This event played a significant role in the war, demonstrating that with smart planning and faith, even a smaller army could overcome a bigger and stronger one. It was a true miracle that helped Israel face a powerful enemy. A great many people were gathered, and they stopped all the springs and the wadi that flowed through the land, saying, "Why should the Assyrian kings come and find water in abundance?" Hezekiah strengthened himself and built up the entire wall that was broken down and raised towers on it. And outside it, he built another wall. He also strengthened the Millo in the city of David and made weapons and shields in abundance. Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, faced a challenging task in his war against Jerusalem due to the formidable wall built by Hezekiah around the city. To avoid a difficult battle, he sent 3 senior generals from his army to persuade the residents of Jerusalem to surrender peacefully. Rabshakeh delivered a persuasive speech but failed to convince the people to surrender. And since the residents of Jerusalem stood firm and declined Rabshakeh's request to surrender, the siege on the city began. The situation was tense, and both sides were prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of Jerusalem. At that tough moment, with the soldiers quiet and the king of Assyria and his army surrounding Jerusalem, King Hezekiah needed to find a way to get out of this situation. But instead of depending on his own strength, he did something amazing. He stood up and prayed to God with all his heart. And Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, "Lord, the God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you alone are God over all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth." During that very night, a tremendous miracle happened for Israel. God's angel came and attacked the Assyrian camp, defeating a massive army of 185,000 soldiers. Then the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. Thanks to the prayers of King Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah, God rescued Israel from the powerful army of Sennacherib. Despite the destruction that fell upon other capital cities of rebellious kingdoms in Assyria, Jerusalem emerged unharmed, leaving a profound impression on the people of that generation. Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, departed and went and returned and dwelt at Nineveh. It came to pass as he was worshipping in the house of Nisroch, his god, that Adramelech and Sharezer, his sons, smote him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Armenia. And Esarhaddon, his son, reigned in his stead. This remarkable episode showcased the power of faith and divine intervention during a time of great peril, reminding all who heard of it that even against overwhelming odds, God could deliver his people from the clutches of their enemies.